Democracy depends on a free press. Please support our independent journalism at democracynow.org/give. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Gaza's humanitarian catastrophe has deepened following a weekend of Israeli attacks that killed scores of Palestinian civilians, including children. In just one of the attacks, an Israeli strike on a school-turned-shelter in Gaza City killed 36 people as they slept. Dozens of others were wounded, many with burns. Video of the aftermath shows the silhouette of a 7-year-old girl rushing to escape the flames. Her mother and siblings were killed in the attack. Survivors described a horrific scene.
An indescribable sight. Body parts, charred people, the smell of sulfur, the smell of charring. I swear to God, our hearts have died. This is how we are shaken. Our nerves are damaged. We're exhausted. We're tired. By God, we're tired. Enough.
Separately, Dr. Ala Al-Najjar, a pediatrician at Nasser Medical Complex in southern Gaza, saw 9 of her 10 children killed or buried under the rubble of her family's home in an Israeli airstrike. Only 1 of her children survived. 11-year-old Adam was left hospitalized, along with Dr. Al-Najjar's husband, who's also a doctor. We'll have more on this story after headlines, with a British doctor who treated her only surviving son. On Monday, a nonprofit group backed by Israel and the United States began distributing limited amounts of aid in Gaza, despite objections from the United Nations, which says the mission could force the further displacement of Palestinians and likely violates international humanitarian law. Other aid agencies, including Mercy Corps and Save the Children, have distanced themselves from the NGO, known as the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. It began operations just hours after its executive director, Jake Wood, announced his resignation. Wood wrote a statement calling for Israel to allow more aid into Gaza, adding, quote, "It's clear it's not possible to implement this plan while also strictly adhering to the humanitarian principles of humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence, which I will not abandon," he said. On Sunday, Israel's military announced it plans to capture 75%, that's 3/4 of the Gaza Strip, within 2 months, and to force Palestinian civilians into just 1/4 of the Gaza's territory. The announcement came as U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem visited Jerusalem and toured Gaza's border with members of Israel's army. Thousands of young Israeli nationalists marched through occupied East Jerusalem Monday, chanting "Death to Arabs" and "May your village burn," as they attacked Palestinian businesses and harassed journalists and activists as part of their annual Jerusalem Day flag march. They also stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. Earlier in the day, Israel's far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir joined the protesters. Israeli newspaper Haaretz reported chants this year also included direct references to Gaza, such as, quote, "There's no school in Gaza, there's no children left," unquote, and "Flatten Gaza." Opposition leader Yair Lapid said on social media, quote, "The festival of hatred and racism in which Jewish teenagers are attacking Arab neighborhoods has become a tradition on Jerusalem Day in the Old City. It is a disgrace and an insult to Judaism," the Israeli leader said. Meanwhile, Israeli forces have been carrying out large-scale raids across the occupied West Bank. The Palestinian Ministry of Health says Israeli troops shot and killed a 32-year-old Palestinian in Nablus, while the Red Crescent reports 19 people were wounded, including a 15-year-old boy, when Israeli forces opened fire with tear gas and live bullets. Russia fired a massive wave of drones and missiles at Ukraine overnight, killing at least 6 people. This follows a weekend of deadly Russian attacks that killed at least 14 civilians. Children were among the dead, including 3 siblings killed in a Russian strike on a home in northwestern Ukraine. Both parents were hospitalized, their mother with severe injuries. In Kyiv, at least 8 people were injured when falling debris from intercepted drones crashed into neighborhoods. This resident survived a fire triggered by the attacks.
Putin doesn't want to end the war. I wish they'd agree to a ceasefire. To bomb people like this, poor children. My 3-year-old granddaughter was screaming from terror. Of course, I wish for the Russians to accept the ceasefire, but Putin doesn't want it. I hope he dies.
Russia's wave of attacks followed hundreds of Ukrainian drone strikes over several days on targets inside Russia, including the capital, Moscow. Meanwhile, Russia and Ukraine completed a deal Sunday to exchange 1,000 prisoners each. It was the largest prisoner swap since Russia invaded Ukraine over 3 years ago. Here in the U.S., President Trump used his social media platform to criticize Russian leader Vladimir Putin, writing he had gone absolutely crazy. Reporters later asked him about the comments.
And I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all.
Trump also lashed out at Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for criticizing the White House after it pulled back U.S. support for Ukraine. Trump wrote Zelensky, quote, is doing his country no favors by talking the way he does. Everything out of his mouth causes problems. I don't like it. It better stop, Trump said. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said Germany and its allies will no longer impose limits on long-range weapons supplied to Ukraine. Immigration rights advocates around the U.S. are raising alarm over the Trump administration's arrest of dozens of people, including families with children, at U.S. immigration courts nationwide. Reports have emerged of federal immigration agents ambushing and detaining people at federal buildings in cities including Phoenix, Arizona, Miami, Seattle, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and across Northern California and Texas. Trump policies now allow ICE agents to make arrests at public schools, hospitals, places of worship, and other sites that were once off-limits. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts temporarily halted a lower court order directing Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency to turn over documents as part of a Freedom of Information Act request. The Justice Department argued DOJ is not a federal agency and therefore cannot be subject to the FOIA request, which came from the accountability group CREW, that's Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. This comes as Musk says he's returned to working 24/7 on his companies after wreaking havoc in the federal government for the past 4 months. Musk also announced last week he'll do a lot less political spending going forward. The Trump administration told a federal judge Friday it had reached an agreement with Boeing to drop criminal prosecutions over the fatal crashes of 2 737 MAX jets in 2018 and 19, which killed together 346 people. Under the deal, Boeing would pay $1.1 billion in fines and investments, including to a crash victims fund. A lawyer for the families promised to urge a judge to reject the deal, saying in a statement, quote, this kind of non-prosecution deal is unprecedented and obviously wrong for the deadliest corporate crime in U.S. history, unquote. Here in New York, students from CUNY Graduate Center, Brooklyn College, and Baruch College are launching an indefinite hunger strike today to protest, quote, the Israeli-U.S. war machine that continues to starve Palestinians in Gaza to death and rain bombs down upon them, unquote. On the West Coast, Stanford University hunger strikers are entering their 3rd week, and University of Oregon students, faculty, and staff have entered the 2nd week of their fast for Gaza. U of Oregon hunger strikers spoke from the steps of the federal courthouse in Eugene.
The students, faculty, and staff participating in this hunger strike have one primary goal, and that goal is that all who bear witness to the hunger strike that we're participating in also bear witness to the humanity of Palestinians who are being starved to death en masse in Gaza, and to take every action possible to stop this crime against our shared humanity.
Students at Yale University ended their hunger strike Friday after 10 days amidst deteriorating health conditions among the activists. On Monday, President Trump threatened to cancel $3 billion in federal grants to Harvard unless the university hands over personal information about international students, who make up more than a quarter of the student body. We'll have more on President Trump's escalating war on Harvard later in the broadcast. We'll speak with a history professor there. In Seattle, police deployed pepper spray and arrested at least 23 people Saturday after residents came out to protest a right-wing Christian event that locals dubbed Fascist Family Values. The far-right religious group has been on tour throughout the U.S. spreading transphobic and anti-LGBTQ messages through their mass public prayer events. Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell condemned the fundamentalist rally, which he said was, quote, inherently opposed to our city's values in the heart of Seattle's most prominent LGBTQ+ neighborhood, unquote. Venezuela's ruling party has claimed victory in regional and parliamentary elections that were boycotted by the opposition. Sunday's controversial elections were seen as another victory for President Nicolas Maduro's government, which claimed that for the first time it will have representation in the disputed region of Essequibo, which is administered by the neighboring country of Guyana and is internationally recognized as Guyanese territory. Maduro has recently intensified Venezuela's assertion over the oil-rich region and said on Sunday local voters had elected the first-ever governor of Venezuela's newly created state, Guyana Essequibo. Guyana's president has denounced this as a threat. This comes as the Miami Herald reports the Trump administration's quietly negotiating a high-stakes deal with Maduro to allow Chevron to continue exporting Venezuelan oil to the U.S. in exchange for Venezuela to begin accepting deported Venezuelan immigrants. And the world-renowned Brazilian photographer Sebastião Salgado died Friday in Paris. He was 81 years old. Salgado won global praise for his striking black-and-white photographs depicting the environment and the plight of workers and refugees around the world. He spent decades documenting the Amazon rainforest and indigenous communities in the region. One of his most celebrated series, taken in 1986, depicted the grueling labor conditions faced by gold mine workers in Brazil. Salgado also went on to document famine in Ethiopia, as well as President Reagan's failed assassination attempt in 1981. Salgado also co-founded the environmental organization Instituto Terra, Institute of the Earth, with his wife. In 2000, I spoke to Sebastião Salgado during an event in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
You have a responsibility to tell the people what is going on. And you must show, you must provoke a debate, you must provoke a discussion, because there is so many injustice, there is so many problems of distribution of health, there is so many problems of security, there is so many injustice around that you must show this, and that become a way of life.
Sebastião Salgado is survived by his wife, 2 sons, and 2 grandchildren. His family said his cause of death was leukemia. To see our interviews over the years with Sebastião, go to democracynow.org. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org/give.